All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live, we are back, and we are terribly sorry about that weird interruption that we just had. Please bear with us as we try to figure everything out and make everything wildly enjoyable for all of you. To make life easier on everyone and to avoid further technical difficulties, we unfortunately will be going this episode sans camera.
Which is really annoying because I worked really hard to do like a cool 80s look, and now no one will see that.
Oh,
And
I'm sorry.
maybe at the end of the video, I'll show it.
Share it online or something. We are just having all the problems, aren't we?
That wouldn't be
It wouldn't be a normal thing for us without all the problems.
Hopefully, these problems won't persist tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm going to see what I can figure out to keep this from happening again. So if you want to get us started as we talk about The Coldest City.
Yes, so this was our last book club of the year. The Coldest City, which was adapted into the movie Atomic Blonde, and so the graphic novel also got like a little facelift, as they do when movies come out. So it was rebranded. So we're going to talk about like a little bit of the overview of the graphic novel, some accolades that it has earned from other media and comic book artists. We're going to take a look at the major characters from the book, our gripes and likes about the graphic novel, and then we're going to talk about the plot divergence between the graphic novel and the movie, and then moments that were actually improved by the movie adaptation. There wasn't really anything where, like, oh man, that scene would have been great in the adaptation. There's like maybe one little small thing, but not enough for that to be its own section this time. But normally we talk about that. Sometimes we also talk about the most important scenes. And so we felt that this would be like a good overview of this book.
And it's kind of a lighter book in tone and theme to get us started.
Yeah, like, it's not as heavy as things like To Kill a Mockingbird and The Hate You Give and Black Klansman. This is way light in comparison, which is a little ironic because it's about espionage and double agents and murder. We'll get started in just a second. We just, again, we had some technical difficulties.
That we're still technically having, but we're just working around them.
Yes, we're working around them. It's not the other technical difficulties literally broke the show. So this is part attempt 2.
Yep. So
fun times.
Looking forward to the new year, Ashley?
Oh yeah. Definitely. Definitely looking forward to that. In fact, tomorrow, if we don't have technical difficulties, we're going to go over our top 10 movies and other things of the year. So,
along with some other
fun things
type stuff.
Yeah, we're going to finally get around to ranking all the Rocky movies and whatnot.
Hopefully everything works out.
Hopefully.
All right. I think I have it squared away as best I can. I have to send one more copy of this link to someone.
Okay.
And then I will be good to go.
See, I didn't even know that Atomic Blonde was based off of a graphic novel until I think like we literally went and saw the movie. Did I just say literally?
Literally.
Literally. I had a friend that used to say that in high school and it drove me crazy.
It literally drove you crazy?
Yes, like I just got in my car and was like drove around in like a donut in the parking lot. Which I have done before. It's real fun. Don't do that or in your car. Lots of stunt driving in the movie.
Yeah.
Not so much in the adaptation as we'll talk about.
No, not so much in the original source.
Yeah.
Okay, I just gotta check in.
All right, before we get started, let's check in with the chat to see if there's anybody actually watching us ramble.
Kimber has rejoined us, which is nice. Thank you for joining us, Kimber.
Yeah, she has a show coming up at 10 Eastern, 9 Central, which I'm going to be tuning in for, which is the Sabrina Midwinter's Tale, or whatever it was called, for Sabrina, the Teenage Witch show, whatever it's really called.
The little teenage show, witch show.
Anyway.
I'm just trying to make sure we can be here or heard. Sam, thank you for joining us. If you guys can hear us okay, please make sure to say in the chat, because unfortunately we've had so much go wrong with the technical difficulties that I want to make sure we are working properly. Because if we're not, then that's
we were
even
just
more.
talking into the wind for nothing.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of sound and fury, which would be real unfortunate.
We can be heard.
Okay.
I just listened on my phone. All right, we're good.
All right, so this is the most disastrous start to any episode ever. Actually, no, Infinity War, we kept having technical difficulties.
That's because half the internet vanished.
Yes. Oh, man. Anyway, let's finally get started with the coldest city. So like I said before, probably 3 or 4 times, I don't remember.
We're so behind schedule. We got to rush this. Too,
yes.
So.
So overview and accolades from different comic book artists and such, characters, gripes, likes, plot divergence. So that's when we're going to start getting into the movie, and then moments that were improved upon by the movie.
Yep.
All right, let's get this show started. And again, you will not see our lovely faces because technical difficulties.
Just aren't they the best?
All right, so The Coldest City was released on May 16th in 2012. The author was Anthony Johnson. It was illustrated by Sam Hart. Comixology, which is where we read it for me the second time, was a 4 out of 5 from its users. Mm-hmm. Goodreads, a little lower at 3.23 out of 5. And then Amazon kind of splits the difference between those two at 3.6 out of 5. And the novel itself has 176 page count.
Yeah. It is a good, like, I would say, like a 2-hour read.
Yeah, definitely, because you want to like go back and double check things. It's like, wait a minute, who's that again?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, is this the truth? You start questioning yourself, which is kind of an interesting thing to pull off in a visual medium, whereas in an actual novel, when we have like an unreliable narrator situation happening, it's like, okay, wait, what they say earlier, but you don't necessarily like flip all those pages back and double check. Well, but in the novel, a graphic novel, it's real easy to do that.
Well, and we kind of have the idea of an unreliable narrator can happen in a graphic novel too. I think that's very prevalent in this as well, if you consider the source material and how it's being presented to us, especially with the movie. The movie really drives home the concept that our narrator could be unreliable and we could be seeing incorrect information even. Mm-hmm.
And so this takes place during the last days of the Berlin Wall. Mm-hmm. In Berlin, Germany. And so there's a lot of conflict between East and West, like KGB versus the Allied forces, as they're still calling themselves, like, West Germany, France, United Kingdom, United States. Yep. Etc. And so some accolades that this received, not any official awards, but just, review praise. Johnson has carved out a niche for himself with layered characters and compelling mysteries. He masterfully draws the story to a height, tension, and speed rising as the reader comes to see the whole of things. Brilliantly and subtly done. And so this is reviewed from the AV Club.
It's really hard to tell when the AV Club's taking something seriously.
Usually, if it's from the AV Club, it's pretty serious.
I know they tend to do little tongue-in-cheek things. It's a little more obvious when they do the tongue-in-cheek things, but they're an offshoot of The Onion, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Anywho, a bit of a masterpiece. Reminded me of Jean Le Carre? I don't know. It looks French. And its very plausible complexity, but a lot more engaging and exciting from Alan Moore, which I think Alan Moore is the guy who wrote Watchmen?
Yes, I believe so.
A slow-burning masterpiece, a gripping read, The Irish Times. A side note, that kind of praise from someone like Alan Moore is fairly impressive because he is a very artistic designer. And when they're that deep into the creative process, they tend to hold other people's artistic creations to their standards. For him to give that kind of accolade is really nice.
Yes, and then also I like how it talks about from the Irish Time review that it is a slow burn, because this is not like the movie, which is very action packed. This is very much like I wouldn't say like boring or anything, but it's definitely very methodical.
It's very dry, and not in a bad way. It's it's like, I don't know.
Once you get to all the reveals, everything starts going into place and making sense.
It's funny because you mentioned how much faster paced the movie is, and the movie starts with the song like "Gasoline," I think, by David Bowie, and yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, they literally lit
everything on fire.
Everything on fire.
So to check in with the chat, Sam, Sister Mary Elephant's joined us. And he's very upset that he can't see my lovely face. It's the only reason he tuned in.
We'll show it at the end.
And he's very upset with technical difficulties.
We'll show our faces at the end. I actually did an 80s inspired look. It didn't really come out very well, but I tried. I was getting ready so quick, and it's like, and the cameras are not working. Great. I tried for nothing.
Kimber did say at least they get to hear our lovely voices. Thank you.
We try.
And hashtag slowroom420 from Kimber.
All right, let's go ahead and get through this. Not that we, want to rush, but other people have shows they got to do.
We want to get plenty of time. So our characters.
All right, so our main character, our protagonist, the one that we really see through the eyes of, is Lorraine Broughton, who's the MI6 agent. She's sent to Berlin to retrieve a list, and list is capitalized because it's important, that could compromise Allied agents around the globe. The mission, however, goes south, and she recounts her story to the higher-ups. And so that's kind of the impetus of the whole graphic novel is things went wrong in Berlin. Now she has to be debriefed because it was very, very bad.
It was a mess. I think the first Mission Impossible movie did something similar to this with the idea of the knock list, which is a list of like all the freaking covert agents from all the agencies around the world.
Yeah, so this has everyone on it, and if the KGB were to get their hands on it, it would be really bad.
Technically, if any organization were to get their hands on it.
Yeah, so it would out everybody's identity. So this is a terrible, no good, bad thing to exist.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They learn of the list through Agent David Percival, who runs the Berlin office. The home office distrusts him, however, because he's gone what they call native. Like, he just loves being in Berlin. It's the best thing ever. He hasn't gone home in years. And he's also extremely condescending toward Lorraine, very sexist.
Oh, yeah. They actually go over that. Like, that's not really a thing that's handled in the movie, so to speak. But the book handles it pretty funny. And it's really hilarious. The first really big tiff they get into is when she makes a comment of, hey, turn here, my hotel's around the corner or something like that. And he's like, hey, I'm not going to take directions from a woman. And I'm just like, who's your prime minister right now?
Exactly.
Margaret Thatcher.
And he hates Thatcher, too. Like, that's why he doesn't want to come back home. Like, he just does not like her.
And who's the queen? Like, yeah, the queen.
the queen. So, yeah, David is a very shady character. And then Chief C and Eric Gray are the bosses of Lorraine and David. And so they kind of stay at the MI6 headquarters. They give her the task of the mission, and of course are the ones to interrogate her when it fails. Chief C more behind the scenes, with Eric being the one that's doing the primary interrogation. It's kind of like they don't want to get the chief involved with things. It's like, oh, this isn't big enough for him.
Yeah.
But however, the interrogation is big enough for him.
Yep.
And so they're just kind of very like typical suits.
Yep.
Stiff shirt kind of guys. Or stuffed shirt, I think is the British phrase. Yeah, they're very bureaucratic, and they're like, well, why didn't you like bring evidence or anything? Like, what's wrong with you? They very clearly don't trust Lorraine's story.
They're also like those bosses in a retail position where like they've been so far out of the job that their subordinates are doing, they don't understand the job anymore.
Yeah. And then Emmett Kurtzfeld is a CIA agent. And so, like, yeah, I'm from the company, which is what they always say. Mm-hmm. And he works very closely with David, where David's, like, basically told him all these things he probably should not have told him. And he comes late into Lorraine's interrogation to kind of contradict some of the things that she said. So he's very upset about what happens with David.
Kimber says that Chief C and Eric Gray look like the same dude. I'm pretty sure that's on purpose.
Yeah, one of them is fat, one of them is thin. Yeah, but a lot of people in this book look the same.
Eric Gray is the one that is giving her the primary debriefing, right? Or
yes.
Okay, that's played by Toby
Jones.
Toby Jones in the movie.
Yeah, and I have pictures of them later on.
You know, Armin Zola.
And then Spyglass is a Stasi, which is a German secret police in the Eastern Bloc.
Yep.
And he's trying to defect to the West because he's like sold all these secrets and he's real scared. And so he's the author of the infamous list that the MI6 is trying to get their hands on.
Yep. And
so he's a very important agent. And those are the main characters.
That's basically it.
There's other minor characters, and some of the characters we've saved for the plot divergences. There's also a lot of different KGB agents that we'll talk about later.
Yep. Kimber thinks that it could just be the drawing of that whole thing with Chief C and Eric Gray looking like the same dude. I think it's a little of both. Like you can probably see the differences a little more pronounced in different angles and different drawings of them, but they do kind of do look like the same dude.
Mm-hmm.
They're both stodgy British balding white men with glasses. So, all right. So we do have a few gripes.
Yeah, not too many.
I think more of the gripes were mine, but this was yours.
All right, so there is a lot because it takes place in Germany. There is a lot of German like television stuff and like different words that they say, but there's no translation for them.
And a lot of comics, even comics before 2012, would do like the little like asterisk,
at the bottom or something,
and translated at the bottom or a little box. So. And it'd be one thing if like Lorraine didn't understand what was going on, but obviously she knows German because she responds.
Yes, and there's like a big plot point in the book where her German is terrible, but clearly she either A, understands more than she can speak, which is very common. Like I know a lot more Spanish that I can understand than I can actually repeat back to people.
And we can Google it. We just did. That's ultimately what.
Yeah, I used Google. I used the Google Translate app on my phone so I didn't have to type things, and it worked okay.
Yeah,
but it was still kind of annoying.
And ultimately, I think you can kind of get the gist of stuff they're talking about from like every 6th or 7th word.
Yeah, clearly they're talking about the protesting that's going on in East Berlin.
Yeah. So, and she is smoking a cigarette there, clearly very upset that like, oh, this is going to get worse.
Yeah, like this is just not the right time.
Right.
But yeah, I just would have been nice to have a little translation help us out.
Mm-hmm. This was more one of my issues that like, and this is probably because we saw the movie before reading the graphic novel, but it is very slow paced. Like we talked about how it's a slow burn earlier. Like half the comic is just two people sitting in a room or standing in a room talking to each other about like, but it's so dangerous in the city, and don't you know you're not supposed to blow your cover and all this kind of stuff. It's a good story that's padded with a lot of like
it was a little. You wanted a little more action.
I wanted a little more something, not just people throwing spy jargon back and forth at each other. So. Conversations that take 4 pages could have been done in 1.
Yeah, and then they also kind of like cut out a lot of like action that could have happened.
Yes,
and we'll talk about
that. Or they
that
minimized it
in the divergences.
Yep.
But yeah, that was really the only 2 big gripes. It's a very enjoyable read overall, even though it is a little slow.
Yeah, it's still a great story. The characters are very compelling. It's just think about Dragon Ball Z when it takes like when Frieza was like, I'm gonna blow up this planet. And it's going to take 5 minutes. 7 episodes later.
Yeah, because he's powering up the whole time.
And like it's entertaining, but you're just like, come on, man. All right, so to get over to the likes, the things that we loved about this.
And we really didn't include like a whole lot of stuff here. It's actually pretty even.
Yeah.
Just because there was a lot of stuff that we liked.
This is one of the handful of times that there's a large divergence from the source material of the movie. So I think that's going to be our bulkier portion to talk about.
All right, so realistic looking spies. And so we see that we have Lorraine and David up in the upper panels. And then in the lower one of the KGB agents, and then a French agent who will be introduced to later. Like these actually look like spies versus in the movie, especially Lorraine and David. Dude, they would stand out so bad.
And Delphine.
Yes.
But that's the thing, like most of the spies in the movie, it's all stylistic, which is fine. It works for the movie.
Yeah, it's a fun, we can suspend our disbelief, but it was nice where it's like, these are people that are going to blend in with society, which is, we know how spies are supposed to be. They're supposed to be
Mr. Unassuming-o.
Yeah, like people that you're going to forget and not take notice of.
All right. Kimber says, got to keep the dialogue tight, just like Into the Spider-Verse. Yep, that's where I'm at. Like, I love tight dialogue. Cultural backdrop, it's really nice that this is going alongside of
the wall events coming down.
Yeah,
and the way they handle it in the movie is pretty cool. It's like they tell us, like, in so and so date the wall came down. This is not that story. So just like the backdrop of all of these things happening is really cool.
Yep.
And then, of course, there was lots of other little things that we liked, but we just wanted to focus on just a couple of things for
a couple of the big ones. These are the big parts about it. But yeah, and I've already kind of checked in with the chat about the dialogue situation.
All right. So the plot divergences.
This is the meat and potatoes.
All right. So just a little bit of facts about the movie. It was released on July 28th of 2017. David Leitch was the director. You may recognize him from directing the Deadpool sequel.
Okay.
Kurt Johnstad was a screenwriter who did the adaptation. And there was actually an article about the adaptation, but I just didn't have time to read it before we went live. It's only had a $30 million budget, which is pretty low for an action movie.
Yeah.
It opened at 4th place at the box office, earning 18 plus $1 million that opening weekend, which is pretty good for the budget that they had.
Yeah, considering it made over half of its budget back.
And then the total box office worldwide, which is kind of evenly split domestic and foreign, was over $100 million. So
nice.
This made a pretty good profit at the box office.
And this proves you can do a very beautiful, stylistic action movie without a 10 times this number's budget. Because that's what most of our action movies nowadays are, like 200 million or something like that, or 120 million.
Yes, this is kind of in the same vein of like John Wick, where they didn't really have like a huge budget. The first Deadpool didn't have a huge budget.
Speaking of John Wick, wasn't there something about that her and Keanu Reeves trained together?
I think they did.
Yeah. Amber says, "Got to keep that," or they should have had David Lynch.
Oh man, this would be so
very different movie.
So different. And then just kind of give some little facts across the internet review sites. For the Rotten Tomatoes on the critics side, this earned a fresh rating of 78%. Audience rating was also fresh at 64%. Cinema score earned a B. So this kind of met audience expectations. Yeah. For the most part, a B is a very good score. Mm-hmm. And then Metacritic was at 63, which is overwhelming, or not overwhelmingly, but all leaning towards the positive.
Yeah. I know we were like blown away by how good this was in the theater.
Yeah, we really enjoyed it because the trailer does suffer from that trope of like, let's have a cool song to go with all the action beats. Yeah. Which had been so overdone lately, especially like Suicide Squad, I think ruined that for everybody.
Or at least a large portion of people.
But this was actually a really enjoyable movie. We liked it a lot. We've watched this probably the most out of every movie from last year.
Yeah. This was my number 1 from last year.
Yeah. This was my number 3. Yep. We actually bought this movie
because of just how impressed we were.
All right, so Lorraine and David, very different looking from the graphic novel to the movie. Much more stylish. Yeah. David, a lot younger, thinner, hipper. Yep. He's definitely like going native with his buzz cut, trying to look more like to blend in East Germany. Yep. Because he goes over there a lot, dresses like, a soldier or whatnot to blend in with the police. He's kind of doing a lot of illegal things in the movie.
He's smuggling, and he's using his smuggling for like information gathering purposes. Like in this first scene, one of the first scenes we're introduced with him in the movie, he's basically gives someone an entire bottle of like Johnny Walker or something like that for pictures of a Russian officer or something.
Which from, we used to watch Burn Notice a lot. Like, it's not like they didn't do stuff like that either. So I'm guessing that's just part of being a spy is, you kind of have to toe the line a lot to get information.
When we first see David's house or his apartment in the movie,
he's got all these Jordache boxes.
He's got just like all sorts of contraband in the house, just waiting to get pushed out to the streets.
So, and he's like, hey, you want some jeans?
Yeah.
And then Lorraine's drink of choice in the book is gin and tonic. In the movie, it's Stoli vodka every time.
All the time.
Product placement, tie-in. That's why I have the tie-in advertisement.
Well, I think with the ending, I think there's a good reason they went with Stoli as well.
Yeah, it's definitely a stylistic choice, but definitely an opportunity for some sponsorship.
I wonder if it's because it's like that hyper recognizable vodka, and B, it's like the only vodka with deep enough pockets to be a sponsor for the film.
Yeah, well, and it's like the iconic Russian vodka. Everybody knows Stoli. It's people have varying opinions of it, but
everyone knows it.
Everyone's heard of it. And then she's not actually blonde in the graphic novel. She's basically kind of like a brunette, and so we see that there's like one time where we see like she's got like her Russian passport towards the end of the novel after everything's gone bad. But she does have like a couple of cool wigs to disguise herself, like a little red wig and then a little brown one
for the very end of the movie.
Yeah. In the beginning of I didn't get a picture because we were like running short on time.
Yeah.
But in the book,
there's a massive divergence like right off the bat.
Yeah, David actually picks her up from the airport.
Yep.
In the movie, some Russian dudes pretend to be him,
or at least be there for him.
And pick her up, and then she quickly realizes that these are the wrong people. Or Joe had a theory about this.
Yeah, so I don't want to spoil the movie completely, but like there's some people that she's friends with that she's like, I think, trying to hide the fact that she's friends with them for the whole movie. And when David, or whenever she gets picked up by them, she then realizes that like Percival David is right behind them in his car. So she starts beating the crap out of him. Like if you've seen the trailer, it's the scene where she's fighting two people in a car
with a shoe,
and it's a pretty awesome scene.
Yeah,
the whole movie is awesome. But I think she was like fine with talking with them on purpose or initially, but once she realized Percival was behind her,
she had to kind
of put on a show.
Yeah, she didn't want her cover blown.
Yep,
that's your theory.
That's my theory.
Yeah, pretty great scene too of her beating people with a shoe. In the very beginning of the graphic novel, David gives a speech about, things are, coming to a change because the wall is coming down literally that day. And he gives his whole speech, which ends kind of with some of them are saying there will be no more secrets from now on, but you and I both know that's not true. Basically, like, oh, no more secrets because the wall, but everybody knows clandestine operations are going to
change the nature of how they function as opposed to being functional in general.
And so
they also don't have my favorite line from the movie in the book.
I love Berlin.
I effing love Berlin.
So his speech gets a little modified, and it's at the beginning of the story versus at the end of the story. So this one like spoils the fact that David is shot.
Yeah.
And so then you're just kind of like finding out how that happened and who did it. Very interesting framing device.
So these are our movie ones. We have Eric, Chief, C, and Kurtzfeld. With Toby Jones, I don't know who plays Chief C.
Yeah.
And Kurtzfeld is, of course, the illustrious John Goodman with his weird lopsided beard. But their introduction and use in the story is slightly different in some cases. I liked all three of these characters. There's a pretty hilarious point where I can't remember our main character's name. Lorraine explains how she met up with Delphine, a French agent. And it cuts back to their interrogation of her.
And it's just awkward.
And he's just like leaning against this glass window like, oh, I wish you hadn't told us about that.
Yeah, because it gets very salacious.
Yes. Is that next? Nope.
All right. And so it's just kind of like a little bit different with her mission in the movie is a little more ambiguous. Like, okay, go recover this guy, Gascoigne, who died. Recover his body, and then like come back. In the book, they already know about the list, so her job is to do anything necessary to get the list. So it's kind of implied in the movie that she's kind of going off on her own to make her time last longer in Berlin, where here it's like, no, like she has to do everything she can because this list can't get out. So the finding out of the list is different.
Yep.
All right, and then of course in the movie, Kurtzfeld is there from the beginning, and she questions why he's there. It's like, what is this guy doing here? She calls him a very bad name.
Yep.
And then he's like, what did you call me? She's like, I didn't say anything. Because there's a different connection between the two of them in the movie versus the book, where he shows up later to contradict everything that she said about what happened. He's like, that's not how it happened.
So here's one of the big ones: is a changing character. So Pierre LaSalle, Delphine LaSalle. In the book, Pierre is. Oh, they're both French agents working for the DSG.
Yeah.
However, in the book, he is a restaurant owner in Berlin, which makes sense. It gives him
That's his cover ID.
That's his cover ID, and he's also like that gives him basically access to like boundless amounts of information as it moves through and all sorts of stuff. In the movie, she is more of a like. This is her first job for the DSG.
And she's like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Like she thought this was going to be fun and exciting.
She thought it would be an adventure. She wanted to be a professional adventurer.
And she's in way over her head. Like, no, like, honey, no. You should, like, I think at one point Lorraine tells her you should have just been a poet. Because she's not cut out for this at all. Whereas Pierre is very good.
Well, and it's not that Delphine isn't totally cut out for it. She's got the skills and abilities to gather this information.
But to keep herself safe.
But to keep herself safe is the problem.
Where Pierre is much more adept, and it kind of feels like he gets killed because like the other side was just a little bit better than him, just versus like Delphine was kind of careless.
In the movie, there's a part where she is basically I think Lorraine tells her you need to get out of here, and she's like, okay, I will.
And she's just like dancing around like with her headphones
she's packing her bags and getting ready to go, but she's wearing headphones when she knows there's people that could be trying to come to kill her. And it's like don't wear headphones.
Yeah, don't.
Like, you need to listen to everything going on around you. So
both of them are very like flirtatious.
Yes.
Especially with Lorraine, and they do end up getting together.
They do.
In both versions.
Which
it's a little more graphic in the movie.
Very graphic in the movie. And then it cuts back to the debriefing where it's got Toby Jones just leaning against the glass like, okay,
didn't need to know that.
That was a bit much.
Whereas with Pierre and Lorraine, it's just like, and the screen fades.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next panel. You didn't see anything. You can paint the picture yourself.
You can.
Let's see. And so, of course, we talked about them both dying. In the graphic novel, she comes, and in the movie, she comes to see that they are already dead when she gets there. And later on in the graphic novel, we see who is the killer. In the movie, it's David taking out Delphine, but in the graphic novel, it is he's actually Polish, a Polish agent that takes him out. That's Lorraine's comrade.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one. Merkel. Who is a trader and I say trader as in the D word, it's there, trader, not traitor. Trader. No, he basically is like the only trustworthy person that she can deal with, practically. I mean, I guess Delphine's pretty trustworthy. But he gets her all of her supplies and help and information while in East Germany. And
it's much more helpful in the movie than in the book, where like he's the one that makes all the false documents, like the passports and such for them, has no qualms helping her. In the book, he's kind of portrayed as being a lot older than his character here, where he seems to very clearly be like of the East German disaffected youth. And I think his haircut choice is very interesting, because his haircut is more Western looking. And so he's trying to like blend in there versus David blending in the East.
Yep. I also like that it's a Skarsgård. They're everywhere. There's Skarsgårds everywhere.
And this is where they also get the element of the watch, because like he offers Lorraine a watch when he meets her at the bistro. And I think that's the thread that they pulled for the movie, because it doesn't really the list and such is in the secret watch in the movie, but in the book it's not like that. Right. It's just a mysterious list.
Yeah, in the movie it's like in a microfilm or something.
All right, then Yuri Baktin is a very important character who's a KGB agent. This is the one that killed Gascoigne. Before the events of the story took place, that's who Lorraine is supposed to retrieve while she's in Germany. We only see him in the graphic novel dead.
Yeah, he actually has a lot more going on in the movie. But the graphic novel, he's just like, he's kind of a side note.
Yeah, she comes upon him in a secret tunnel, because like an important point in the graphic novel is like, well, like he has the list, but no one knows where he is.
Right. And
it's like, he's in this tunnel. No list on him.
Someone killed him.
Who did it? And then Alexander Brimovich, or Alex as he's called in the graphic novel, the one that killed Pierre.
Yep.
So he's Polish in the graphic novel. He tries to pick up Lorraine in a bar, but really as her comrade. He also is the killer of David.
Yep.
Whereas in the movie, David's killer is a different person.
Yeah.
And so he still tries to pick up Lorraine in the movie. He only thinks that she's his comrade, but really she double crosses him. And so it's kind of like a little triple agent situation in the movie.
Yeah.
Real cool.
It's all over the place. Crazy.
In fact, the way the graphic novel ends is with her going defecting to the the Russian side, as the wall has fallen down. But again, in the movie, she does not do that. She's been like basically playing all the sides is really gathering information for the U.S. And she has ties with Kurtzfeld.
Yep.
And it's like real funny way that they interact at the end of the movie, where they're recounting the bad name that she called him at the beginning of the story.
Mm-hmm. So this is also a major divergence. Is like there is so much more action in the movie.
Yeah, so this one it just kind of like pretends that it happened, like, oh, I had to run away from people, whereas like in the movie they actually show her fighting off these guys as she's going to meet Merkel to start working out their plans or whatnot.
Yep.
And so it's actually a really cool action sequence at I think the Alexanderplatz, like in the movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really funny because the movie she goes and hides in is called Stalker.
Yep.
And so now I want to look up that movie. And then the plan to get Spyglass out of the country is vastly different in the graphic novel. In the movie, he has a family that is defecting with him. And then David is going to be with them and go with the family. And Lorraine's going to stay with Spyglass. And the cover is going to be this protest that's happening. And then it's kind of like it was a different character's idea of like who should go during the protest. And so there was like a lot of fighting over how they should get Spyglass out.
Yep.
And like what happens with in the graphic novel, the end of Spyglass is a little different.
Yep.
Where it's a little more action packed in the actual movie.
It's also less abrupt. Like, because that's the thing in the graphic novel. It's just like, and it's done.
And he's gone. And that's really where we only get our like one action scene where she like throws a guy off the stairs.
Like a balcony kind of thing.
Yes. And then a scene that I actually thought would have been interesting in the movie is, all this crap happened in East Germany, and the West German police show up and want to question Lorraine about it because they don't trust that she's really there for like what she said and like her identity. Because obviously when she went there, she didn't go as Lorraine, she went as a lawyer.
Yep.
And so they're trying to figure out like what's going on. And Pierre's actually the one that kind of helps her. Like, oh, I have an alibi for her. She was with me.
Yeah.
We were at my restaurant.
You can ask my 5 employees.
They'll vouch for us. They're like, sure they will. And they don't trust it one bit.
They're like, I'm sure they will. Dang it. Because they're going to vouch for him and they know that they're lying, but what else they can't really prove it.
And of course, David's demise, they bring it up again, but you don't really see like who the killer is at first. And you're like, did Lorraine do it? And is she lying? Is it someone else? And so that's a really cool play with the perspectives. And then like there's this whole idea about the list, and is it like really real, or did Percival just lie to everybody? Like we really can't trust him. In the graphic novel versus the list is totally 100% real.
Oh yeah, Percival looks at it,
mm-hmm.
like reads some of it.
Yes, but it's not real in the graphic novel. That was just like a ruse, and so Percival is trying to cover up his lie the whole time, is what we've learned. And then this idea of Satchel, this rogue agent, is throughout the movie, but in the graphic novel doesn't get introduced until like the last 20 pages. So that's pretty interesting turn of events and such. But those were the biggest differences in the novel and the actual movie.
Yeah.
The movie is much more action packed. We learn little tidbits of information earlier. The ending is changed.
Kimber said the trailer is why they skipped it, and I can believe that. There are two movies that the trailer is like absolutely worse than the movie itself, and one of them is Atomic Blonde. The other is Snowpiercer.
Yeah, the Snowpiercer trailer is terrible.
Yeah,
I didn't mind the Atomic Blonde trailer, but I really like that Depeche Mode song, and I like spy stuff, so it worked for me.
Yeah.
But I could see where it definitely would be a turnoff for most people.
The guy who plays Eric from Doctor Who, yes, Toby Jones played, I believe, the Dream Master in Doctor Who. And I made the comment that he also plays Armin Zola, as well as the other reporter guy in the Hunger Games.
Yes.
The not Stanley Tucci.
Not Caesar Flickerman, the other guy, whose name I can't remember.
So yeah, that's about all of our chat currently.
All right, so most improved by the movie, of course, the action scene. So here's like the aforementioned like one action sequence in the graphic novel where she just fights one guy, this really cool assassin dude. And then in the movie, there's tons of other action sequences. At one point, she's like, well, if I had known that David was going to call the cops, I would have worn a different outfit.
Yeah.
One that would allow me to fight better, where she's like wearing like these like super like go-go boots with like she garters and
really good.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, definitely not like a fighting outfit.
There's one scene they use in the trailer that I really loved where it's like right after the scene on the left, right after she's done beating the crap out of these guys in this apartment. It's her going outside and like trying to leave the scene, and the cops show up to question her, and she just stops for a second and pulls the turtleneck up of her outfit over her face. And I'm just like, that's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, lots of great action sequences. Not all of them done to pop songs or anything, but although the soundtrack in the movie is really good, it's a good selection of like late 80s songs that would have been popular in Europe at the time. Some of them in German. Not overdone like in Suicide Squad.
Bookended with some David Bowie / Queen.
The use of color is really brilliant in the movie, but whereas the graphic novel is very stark, clean, black and white.
There's a scene in the very beginning of the movie where it's her basically taking an ice bath, covered in bruises, but everything is super washed out, like she's exhausted and burnt out, like it's been a taxing week.
Yeah, lots of nice blue and pink 1980s neon. Like her hotel room is that color, and it's like, that is not relaxing.
No.
You said it was a love hotel.
It looked like one.
But yeah, I just love the color saturation. Very beautiful in the movie.
Yep. So final thoughts. I liked the graphic novel. I liked the movie better.
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie a lot more than the graphic novel. They're both good.
Yeah.
But just the movie as on its own. I think the story is a lot more interesting with the introduction of Satchel at the beginning. Who is Satchel? What's going on? Some other things that I didn't have in the presentation was Lorraine basically blackmailing David, or like coming up with her own evidence for David being Satchel. She mics herself up very frequently, and she kind of pieces together all these different bits of conversations he's had and conversations like with other like KGB agents to make it seem like he was the one going rogue. And so that was a really cool element. I didn't have time to get any pictures of that. That's another huge divergence from the plot, is her manipulating the story. Versus in the graphic novel, she just destroys all the evidence that could implicate both of them, and just basically they have to take her word for it.
Yep. I felt like everything the graphic novel tried to show us and tell us, the movie was able to do in a tighter format, in some form or fashion. That being said, I do think the graphic novel is a really nice distillation of the kind of like deep undercover spy shenanigans that would go on behind the scenes during the Cold War. I don't know where the guy got his information and sources on how to handle that stuff, but it felt very much like spies actually operate. Um, at least that's what I am led to believe by other information about spies that I have heard. It's not like I am a spy and know this information. So I am operating off of what information I have learned from other sources, reading things, and all like. So, all in all, I really enjoyed the graphic novel. I think I like the movie a little more.
Yeah, I definitely could agree with that.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to continue doing our little book club into the new year.
We are. And as this is my birthday month, I get to pick the book. And we're going to do the second Pathfinder Tales book by James L. Sutter, The Redemption Engine. We read the first one of this little two-part series of books a while back, The Death's Heretic. You can look it up if you'd like to. Read the book. Join us on the 27th of January. I loved this book. I actually read this one before Death's Heretic and then found out Death's Heretic was the book that came before it. Read them out of order.
I've done that before with Sid Chiker's Guide. I read Restaurant at the End of the Universe first.
Yep. I love, even going back, I love Redemption Engine a lot more. It's got one of my favorite cities in the setting, and it's just, I think it's a better story all in all. It does a lot of the same kind of stuff. At the end of the day, it's still a pulp mystery in a fantasy world, and that's just fantastic. But yeah, that's our next book. What do we have left on deck for this year?
All right, so tomorrow at 8 Eastern, we're going to, hopefully our camera will work.
We're going to try and get it to work.
And we're going to count down the top 10 movies of 2018. We're each making our own list. We're also going to talk about other cool theater experiences that we had. We're going to talk about our final ranking of all the Rocky movies because that was requested. And so, yeah, we're just going to have a lot of fun. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about some of our Netflix faves because we did watch a lot of Netflix movies as well.
And Amazon and Hulu.
Yeah.
Mostly Netflix because they have kind of the corner market on originals, but we do have some other originals from other producers like you said, Amazon and Hulu that we have watched and loved as well. I'm thinking one about a comedian.
Yes.
So yeah, that'll be tomorrow at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. To ring in the new year with us if you guys want to. Not actually ring in the new year. We're only going to be probably about an hour or so. We do have a New Year's party tomorrow to go to as well, as I'm sure a lot of people do.
Yes,
they don't want to spend New Year's watching YouTube videos of us talking about movies. Come on, guys. I know better than that. But thank you for joining for this. Thank you for putting up with all of our weird, dumb technical difficulties that we've had tonight. We're going to try and make sure that's not a problem tomorrow. And I'm sure Ashley's going to post a picture of herself on Twitter where you can find her at
_Mrs. Davis. In fact, I'll just
you're going to try and get your camera to work.
Yeah.
Bear with us for a second, folks. It's a thing.
Wait, no, stop sharing. I don't know how to work things.
Technology.
Is it working?
No. I believe the camera's off.
Well.
Click it one more time. You have it off. And go to the little gear.
That's probably why.
Do that one. That's the microphone.
This one?
Yeah. No, do the top one. Sorry. Do one more up. Up. That's the built-in one. Do save. That is the camera turned off. When the red thing is red, it's off. Okay. So the camera's not working. Yay! Google Hangouts, you're the worst. Oh, no, there it goes. Ha!
Yeah, this camera's terrible.
Ha! Yeah, it's not a great camera.
Yeah, that's why we don't use it. This is the reason why we have a different camera, because the two cameras that we do have are awful.
All right. I plugged it in. See if you can switch over to the other one. It'll be better if we can. It's easier because we basically could only work with one camera for give it a second to switch over. We could only work with one computer for most of this stuff. So basically, oh, there it goes. So basically, we didn't want to keep switching back and forth because it's a chore to do that. I'm seeing you over here. So it's working. It's just weird.
Yes.
Boom.
So this is for you, Sam and Kimber.
we'll see you guys tomorrow night. We're going to make sure we get these technical difficulties fixed, so it's not a problem. Thank you for joining us.
We appreciate it.
Good night.
See you tomorrow.